Alright, so Rage of the Abyss is coming to the TCG in about a week, and we are going into a much different format than what we've been used to in recent years. While OCG had Max Z, we've been getting Rongoed, FTK'd in multiple different ways, hand looped, extra linked, and more. Then the 2019 Megatins introduced some groundbreaking cards to combat power creep, but even that wasn't enough with the likes of Baron and Apollousa still legal. And even after we saw the banning of the former in April and the latter in September, the competitive metagame just does not seem to be catching a break. And here comes Azamina from Rage of the Abyss, a set that will change Yu-Gi-Oh! As we know it. The core set is also going to introduce an unlikely hero, a band-aid for the bleeding open wound that is the TCG metagame. Today we're going to be discussing what Rage of the Abyss format is going to bring, and also some of the dynamics between the newly introduced cards. And we have got to ask ourselves, is Yu-Gi-Oh! Going to be saved, or is the worst yet to come? Please share all of your thoughts in the comments. I really just want this to be a hopefully polite discussion about all of our thoughts and opinions. Are you excited about the format? Are you scared? Are you going to be playing the new cards? I would love to know all of that. And of course, like the video if you enjoy it. It really helps the channel, so I appreciate that. Now, let us start off with taking a look what happened in the OCG when Rage of the Abyss dropped. Before Rage of the Abyss, so this was week 1, 2, and 3 in the OCG, Snake Eyes was at the top at about 20%, Yubel almost 20%, and Tenpai Dragon about 14%, and then there's some other decks also present. Now, Snake Eyes did have a couple hits at that point. They just had a ban list about a month before this happened, and then Rage of the Abyss dropped. And now I want you to take a look at the pie chart and what happened. So Snake Eyes is immediately represented at 25% on week 4, and Tenpai Dragon is at about 23%. Notice anything? Obviously, it's the lack of Yubel anywhere at the top, but there is a slight little sliver in the pie at about 4.3% Yubel is represented. So what happened? Rage of the Abyss introduced an insane archetype, a new hand trap, and Fiendsmith support. And all of that resulted in Tenpai Dragon and Snake Eyes taking a definitive lead, and everyone that was playing Yubel at that point just switched back to Snake Eyes. So what is the engine I'm talking about? Of course, you already know from the intro, it's Azamina. When they decided to ban Baron, Apollousa, Savage, most of us were just rejoicing and thinking that we might actually have some kind of interactive format. But let's read through the Azamina card. It is called Ilia Sylvia. And the most important part of the fusion's effect is when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can tribute this card, negate that effect. What would you do if I told you that you can put up this monster via one card that happens to be a secret rare? Remember that. And it is going to protect your entire Snake Eye combo, entire Fiendsmith combo, with you sacrificing nothing more than one monster you have to tribute for that card's effect. It's pretty insane, isn't it? And it seems very familiar. And what does Konami love to do? Love to do. I have to preface this. They adore printing cards that do the exact same thing as the cards that are already banned. And usually they put a huge price tag on those cards to make sure we cash out, we get them because we are forced to, because that's what the metagame dictates. Of course, you're gonna want to buy the Azamina engine, put up a negate via a one-card combo so your entire Snake Eye combo can go through. Not to mention that you are able to access that Snake Eye combo through your Azamina cards, meaning that not only do you get an additional disruption, but you're also able to consistently access your Snake Eye cards, which at this point, it's kind of tougher. If you were paying attention to the top cut of the last YCS that happened, there was hardly any Snake Eye decks in top cut. What happened was Snake Eye just could not compete with the lack of consistency, a lot of hand traps running around, as well as board breakers, and Yubel being the deck that puts up a disruption very early, which is Phantom, and can play through hand traps extremely easily, people just didn't really do well with Snake Eyes. And what Azamina is bringing to the table is pushing a deck that was at the forefront of the meta for the entirety of 2024 pretty much, and making it that much more consistent and resilient. And I also want to talk about the one-card combo starter, Deception of the Sinful Spoils, being a secret rare, because of course it is. We don't have to go in depth at this point. I can just show you the price tag. It is about $75 for a single copy of Deception, which jumpstarts your entire Azamina combo. And at that point, it doesn't really matter that the negate is a super rare and that another crucial part of the combo is an ultra rare, because you're gonna be paying about $80 for one copy of Deception anyway. It genuinely breaks my heart. It's all just temporary. They love to hit decks once they milked every single penny they could from those decks. What I'm talking about, of course, is the reprints. And what we saw announced is Diabellstar being reprinted in the Bonanza, whatever it's called. And of course, Wanted was reprinted in the Megatins. And what they also did with Barone and Napalooza, they reprinted it in the Rarity Collection, Savage as well. And then all of those cards were hit. So, yeah. It's going to feel really bad once you hit that confirm payment on TCG Player or wherever you buy your cards, and know that that money is gone for good. You're not getting it back. You're not getting actual pluses from it. You invested it into a card game. If that is worth it to you, that's great. If you're going to go to events, try to do well, amazing. If you don't really care about pricing that much, but just want to have some successes in the game, also great. You know, I'm not really the one to talk. I invested into Yubel because I really, really like the deck. But I'm not certain I want to be investing into Snake Eye. And that's just going to be up to you. You have to decide if it's worth it or not. And on that note, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Phuvaros. Now, the Numo Charme card is extremely broken. TLDR, it's Purulia, but you can draw when your opponent summons from either the deck or extra deck, meaning it's going to actually come in handy much more than Purulia. They don't cancel each other out. You're going to be able to play all of those if you want to, and they're just going to be so insane, either going first or second, because if you decide to play Snake Eye, you can just use it as the monster you have to tribute for Deception, like I mentioned before, because you do need a monster to tribute. And if you go second, you're probably winning if they don't have Ash, or they're going to be forced to pass on a significantly weak board, which you're probably going to be able to push through. So at that point, we have to ask ourselves, why don't they just unban Max C? Why do they have to print a card that does a very similar thing? Granted, it's just a tiny bit weaker compared to Max C because you should not control any cards in order to activate it, but that's pretty much it. And of course, the answer is going to be money, because when you look at that pre-sale price, I promise you, you have got to be either sitting down, not drinking or eating anything because you're just going to spit everything out, and just kind of mentally prepare yourself before you either look at my screen or go on TCG Player, because that pre-sale price is wild. What would you like to do? Do you want to pay about $200 for one copy of a card that's probably going to win you most games that you play? Or not? And that's exactly what we've been talking about before. If you decide it's worth it, great. It's worth it to you, but it's extreme, to say the least. And I would love to know your thoughts and opinions about that. Something that also scares me a bit, and you can see by the OCG pie chart, is Tenpai Dragon is going to be extremely broken, because what they can do is, going second, Phuvaros is of course incredible. And going first, what Tenpai Dragon usually ends on is Hieratic Seal. So they can just tribute the seal for its cost. And when they don't control any card, they can chain Fuvaros. And then in the new chain, Seal is going to mandatory trigger and you get to summon from the deck. So yeah, it's gonna be scary. And what I really want to ask you is, do you genuinely think Fuvaros is going to be able to contain this tier 0 format? Because if a deck as broken as Yubel fell off, which of course they do have Maxi, some other cards, different ban list, all of that, we do have to take that into account. But players that played Yubel before decided to switch to Snake Eye because it's just a sensible thing to do. And if that happened, and if Tenpai Dragon just completely overtakes the format right next to Snake Eye, do decks even stand a chance? Because sure, Fuvaros might keep some decks in check, but it's also going to extremely hinder rogue decks that cannot afford to pass. And if you don't pass and you give them a lot of draws, they're just gonna annihilate you anyway. So it's gonna be extremely weird to play and try to put up mediocre boards so you don't exactly lose. We're going to be playing a lot of hand traps as well, so you don't really get hurt by Fuvaros as much because you have additional interruptions in your hand. Not to mention that we're going to have to playing all of those hand traps to draw into them with Fuvaros, because Azamina is that broken that you're going to have to open 2 to 3 hand traps to even dream about interrupting Snake Eye. We're going into a wild format. And the last card I want to talk about is going to be Dominus Impulse, another card that's broken in Tenpai Dragon. Right now we have Dominus Purge, which is really good in Ritual Beasts. And I want to know your thoughts about the design on those traps that have recently been printed and are going to be printed. Do you like them? I think it's very similar to Impermanence, but it has more specific effects, which I kind of like. And what I'm also a fan of is the restriction on the card. Yeah, some decks are going to be boosted by that. However, it's not that generic. Engines are generic. And I think that's a problem because a lot of times they are overpriced. So you do get priced out of the game if you don't have it. And also most decks look very, very similar. What I want to do to really round this video off is answer my initial question. Is Yu-Gi-Oh! Saved or is the worst yet to come? And honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards the latter, not the former. So I don't know. You tell me. Please share all of your thoughts. Let's just go into Rota format together. Let's see what happens. I will definitely be here creating a lot of Rota content. So whatever you want to see, please let me know. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I love doing these types of back and forth discussions with you guys. So again, feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. And like the video if you enjoyed it, of course. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.